The Eureka Stockade was a significant event in Australian history that took place on December 3, 1854, in Ballarat, Victoria. It was a rebellion by gold miners against the oppressive policies of the colonial government, highlighting the struggle for democratic rights and representation. During the mid-19th century, Ballarat experienced a gold rush, attracting thousands of miners seeking their fortune. However, the colonial government imposed harsh regulations and fees on the miners, which they saw as unjust and exploitative. One of the most resented measures was the mandatory mining license, which required miners to pay a substantial fee of £1 per month, regardless of whether they found gold or not. The discontent among the miners grew, fueled by their frustration over the exorbitant fees and the harsh methods employed by the government-appointed police force, known as the Gold Commissioners. The Gold Commissioners had the authority to conduct searches, confiscate gold and arrest miners for non-payment of the license fee. These actions often resulted in the abuse of power and widespread resentment among the miners. In response to these grievances, a group of miners decided to take a stand. They formed the Ballarat Reform League, which advocated for democratic reforms, including the abolition of the mining license fee, the right to vote, and representation in the Victorian Parliament. On November 29, 1854, tensions escalated when a miner named James Scobie was allegedly murdered by a group of troopers. The miners demanded justice for Scobie's death and the removal of the corrupt officials involved. They also called for the release of 3 reform leaders who had been unjustly arrested. In the following days, the miners organized themselves and constructed a fortified stockade on the Eureka goldfield near Ballarat. The stockade, made of wooden palisades, served as a symbol of defiance against the oppressive authorities. The miners raised the blue and white Southern Cross flag, representing their unity and aspirations for democratic change. On the morning of December 3, 1854, the government forces, led by Commissioner Robert Reid, launched a surprise attack on the stockade. The conflict, known as the Battle of the Eureka Stockade, was brief but intense. The poorly armed miners, estimated to be around 150, fiercely resisted the attack, but they were ultimately overwhelmed by the superior firepower of the government forces, which included soldiers and mounted police. The battle resulted in the deaths of approximately 30 miners and 6 soldiers, with many more injured on both sides. Among the casualties was the charismatic miner and leader of the Ballarat Reform League, Peter Lalor, who lost his arm in the conflict. Following the battle, the government arrested and tried numerous miners for treason and rebellion. However, due to the lack of evidence and public sympathy for the miners' cause, most of the charges were dropped, and only a few miners were convicted. The Eureka Stockade, despite being a military failure for the miners, had a profound impact on Australian history. It highlighted the deep-rooted grievances of the gold miners and their demand for fair treatment and democratic rights. The events at Eureka led to reforms, including the abolition of the mining license fee and the introduction of more representative government practices. Today, the Eureka Stockade is a powerful symbol of resistance and has been celebrated as an iconic moment in the struggle for workers' rights and democratic principles in Australia.